Dear friends, our dear students, our dear researchers and the guests, I'm very glad. My name is Timothy Bolshev. I'm academic supervisor of the Center for Comprehensive European and International Studies. And I'm very, very glad that today we have a speaker, my personal old friend, Dr. Van Wэнь from Zhenmin University, Dean of the Chunъyan School of Financial, Executive Dean Chunъyan Institute for Financial Studies, one of the leading Chinese think tanks dealing not only with world economy but with international politics as well. So Wang Wen is staying with us in Russia for almost 2 months in order to study Russia, these times to understand better the internal developments of this country, to write a book about Russia, and to promote the cooperation between China and Russia in education, research, and different fields of the human activities. So I'm very glad to invite that we have him today with the lecture, We'll Discover Russia, We'll Discover China. But before I give a floor to you, I give a floor to our dean, Dr. Anastasia Likhacheva, who is always encouraging the development of international ties, and especially with Russia's biggest partner, China's partner.
I feel like I get Oscar, not just right to speak. Well, dear Professor Van Wэнь, dear students, I'm very glad that we host this event. And more than a year ago, in one of our professional discussions here with the faculty staff, we fixed that our top priority for the coming time is to enhance as much in-person communication between our students, our professors, and our foreign partners as we can. Because after 2 years of COVID, and all kind of fascinating online formats, we clearly conclude that there is nothing better than real in-person lectures, communications, Q&As, and talks. So we can only welcome not just your visit to Russia, but also to our faculty, and I'm sure and happy that we already mapped some potential formats for our long-lasting cooperation. As you can see, the very natural interest to the issues you plan to raise in your lecture is extremely high. For last, since 2020, we actually mostly studied not just China. Of course, we do study China, and our prominent sinologists are here. We study digital China. We study data about China, statistics about China, mostly the same as China does about Russia. I would be very happy if your lecture, your book, and our future cooperation would contribute to bridging this gap between real Russia, offline Russia, and real offline China, with all the reliance on prominent digital formats and assets that were already accumulated. Thank you very much for coming, and I won't steal too much time. Just the one issue I would like to ask our students and colleagues: please raise as much questions as possible, because it's not just good for your promo and could be interesting for you and your colleagues, but also, well, if it's an interesting question, I hope you can even become one of the personages of the coming book. That is nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Anastasia. And also thank you, Timothy. It's a really great honor for me to come here. Actually, I now stay in Russia for 1 month. And also, I think that for me, it's not a lecture. I think it's reporting. Reporting what? Reporting to you about my learning experience based on my past 1 month's experience in Russia. So I prepare a PPT. So my the title, the name I want to report to you is that we discovered Russia, we discovered China. I'm very hard. Even this morning, 4 p.m. or 4 a.m. this morning, I still prepared a PPT, and I just finished, 1 hour ago. And of course, for me, it's very pleased to have the opportunity to exchange ideas with my Russian colleagues of SG University, which is a top university in Russia, and also I'm admired. And I think that for me, today is the 35th day of my visit to Russia. Because although I have been to Russia 8 times in the past 10 years, but each time I was for 3 days or 2 days or even maximum 1 week, and then back to Beijing. So my understanding of Russia was only an impression in the past. So this time to visit Russia is my first time abroad since the COVID-19. You know, in China it's very difficult to go abroad seeing the COVID, right? And also I'm the first Chinese think tank scholar to visit Russia seeing the outbreak of the COVID, and also a visit to Russia seeing the Russia special military operation. So I hope to get to know Russia more deeply, because it's very difficult. It's very difficult to know what happened on Earth in Russia. And also we Chinese very curious on Russia's process and Russia's economy, Russia's politics. You know, it's a very hot topic. Every day, my friends in Beijing, in every cities in China, ask me what happened on Earth in Russia, especially since September. And so in the past 5 weeks, I visited many ministries, including Foreign Ministry of Russia, and also the Euro-Asian Economic Integration Committee. And also I have also invited to first talk for the ES. I went to St. Petersburg State University for lecture, and so I very appreciate the White Club, and also it's University. And then after adjusting in Moscow in middle of September, I set off to visit Volga, Rostov-on-Don, and Crimea, 3 cities, Simferopol, and St. Vastovo, and Yaka. I'm so sorry, it's difficult for me to pronounce the name of the Russian city. And also to Krasnodar and Churchill and Sochi. And then back to Moscow for 3 days rest at the end of September. And I flew to the Yakutsk for lecture and visit to Khabarovsk and Kamchatka, and I'm back here. 3 days ago, I just come back from Kamchatka. And the rest time I talked with many friends in Russia, and also participants in more than 20 seminars, and talked with more than 100 Russian friends and local Chinese, and really learn a lot from the experience. And also next week I will plan to visit more cities. And I think this experience, even for those scholars who study in Russia or speak in Russia, are all very few. I think maybe they might have never done such a very special visit. I really appreciate in such a perspective. I really appreciate the coffee, because of coffee, the flight canceled. I planned to fly back to Beijing, you know, at middle of September, but the flight canceled. So I planned for this visiting. So I defined it as a trip of rediscover Russia. What does that mean? So I want to report to you on 4 points. One is what did I rediscover Russia? I have 3 surprises want to share with you. Second is that the current situation, the potential of China-Russia economic cooperation. The third point I want to share with you is that I suggest my Russia colleagues and Russia friends, we should rediscover China's 3. And also the final point I want to share with you is that the suggestions for future China and Russia cooperation. So I hope I can have everyone's comments and corrections. First point, 3 surprises of rediscovering Russia. What does that mean? I think because for 5 weeks, I really surprised on 3 points on Russia. First, the stability of Russia society, I think it's beyond my imagination. Because since the beginning of the September, the Russian army has retreated in Ukraine, which was regarded by the Western media as a big loss. And there were even rumors, especially in the early of September, rumors of the cop detached in Moscow has occurred. A lot of people, in Beijing, they ask me, what happened on Earth in Moscow? I think it's a rumor. Don't worry, it's quiet. In Moscow, it's quiet. And after the partial draft order was issued on September 21, there was also rumors in Chinese. And they said all the Russian young generations were collectively deserting military service. But however, I have been to supermarket and shopping mall in 40 cities in Russia, and the reality I see is that the city order is stable. There's no shortage of supermarket goods and no citizen rush to buy goods, and there's no bank run. That's what I thought. And people live their life as usual, drinking, singing, dancing, with no apparent daily shocks. And in 2022, the inflation in Russia, the inflation in Russia is expected to be 13%, with unemployment below 5%. I think it's much better than China. And also, I have seen the call to buy bricks in many cities. But the overall functioning of society is still normal. That's true in the past 1 month. And this is inflation rate, and this is Russia's employment rate, which are record very low. And of course, I heard some news. There's definitely a small number of people who desert military service. Of course, maybe 100,000 people, young people, or also 200,000 maybe. But compared to the whole country, I think it's still a very small number, because there are a lot of foreign or even young people. They have a lot of foreign relatives live in Moscow, live in Moscow, so they retreat. And I have communicated with about 100 Russians. Some are anxieties, and some are worried. But I can share with you is that all people I talked, all the Russians I talked, they all believe that Russia is sure to win and support President Putin. This is my shock. This is really a shock for me, and all of them support. But maybe they have some gossip or some complaint. But I think in their heart, even when I was in the impressive experience, when I was in Yakutsk, the people told me, because in Yakutsk, most of people they look very Chinese. The face looks very Chinese. But I asked him your identity. I feel very shocked. I'm Russian. We are all Russian too. We support Russia, and we support President Putin. And we think Russia is sure to win. That's shocked me. And so I think an event, new as recorded event, the conflict, the war, the Russia's largest military operation since the World War II. And also in the international study, we identified the war as the most influential international event since the Cold War. We compare after the end of the Cold War. There's a very big event. They influence the world, impact the world. First is September 11, and then the financial crisis in 2008, and then the war, the Ukraine war. I think that now the conflict, the influence is much bigger than September 11, than the international financial crisis in 2008. So So I think that such a big event for me has occurred for nearly 8 months, but it basically did not affect the daily life of the vast majority of the urban people. You still singing, dancing, talking, living, loving. And I think this is true. Even some shock in your heart, but even in the Moscow street, in many city streets. So I think this is stability of the Russian society that strikes me. That's the first point I want to support with you. Second is the Russian economy foundation has not collapsed, even you face the thousands of sections. So I think as long as the reform, adjustments, and the stimulus are put in place, the re-emergence of the de-westernized Russian economy is not a dream. And I just see the infractions of Russia. Because in my eyes, the potential of Russia's resources, including oil, natural gas, coal, grain, is still one of the most, or not one of, it's the most, just the most abundant countries in the world. And all elements in Mendeleev's periodic table can be found in Russia. And there's no problem in the future flourishment of the Russian economy decoupled from West. I believe this is the resources where Russia is the number one. And US and Western sections cannot isolate Russia. And Russian economy has a strong ability to withstand the pressure. So now we have the section versus anti-section struggle. And Russia has firmly grasped the initiative in this currency war through its resources advantage. You win the currency war. This I want to learn from Russia, because in the sections, the ruble now the ruble become the world's strongest currency in 2022. Just my honest words, because China is still live in sections from the West, but not so many as China. So one of the research subject from in China Academy is to learn how to against anti-section. I think Russia gives China a lot of experience, and in the past 9 months, Russia's oil and the national gas price hikes generated more than 40% of the additional fiscal revenue, which basically covered the cost of the special military operation against Ukraine. So this is the fiscal adding, and this is the fossil revenues. So I think a lot of international institutions estimate that the impact of the war on Russian economy this year will be minus 10% to minus 5%. Even your first deputy prime minister still think this year the Russia's economy will be the minus 2% and minus 3%. But in my opinion, these conclusions overestimate the impact of the war. And I guess that I just very quickly, because I prepared 100 plus pages. And judging from the appreciations of the ruble, the increase in Russia's public finance, and the integration of 4 Eastern Ukraine states in Russia. So Russia's, in my opinion, Russia's real GDP this year may grow this year. But the problem, I have to say, it has to be said that GDP is only an economic figure and cannot represent the quality of the economy. From my research experience, Russia's infrastructure is quite backward. Economic factors, based on my experience in the past 1 month, the economic factors of Russia have not been fully released, and market vitality has not been stimulated, and the digital development in the 5G era has not yet begun. Just honestly, because I have talked to a number of local officials, and they are enthusiasts of local governance of Russia. They presume the federal budget transfers. Presumed federal budget transfers is far higher than the enthusiasm to increase fiscal revenue through local economic growth. So that's why some scholars they comment that Russia's urban construction, high-speed rail, highway, airport facility, and international speed are 10 to 15 years behind that of China. I think that this kind of evaluation may embarrass Russian colleagues, Russian friends, but scholars must have objective and honestly presumes. So I must say that so-called 10 to 15 years behind the evaluation is objective, because I traveled to so many cities. In some infrastructure fields, I have to say, Russia may even be 20 years or longer behind China. I mean, just in infrastructure. I just list a lot of numbers. I don't want to describe it. The second point. Third point, the surprising is that the high quality and rich cultural literacy and the strong national identity of ordinary Russians make me admire. That's true. And make it impossible for the so-called Western dismemberment of Russia fantasy to consume. I think even in those Roman places like Yakutsk, Khabarovsk, and Kamchatka, those ordinary people are very proud of being Russian. And even in Chechen, I've been, and I stayed in Chechen for 3 days, and the Russian identity is far beyond my imagination. And what's more, I found that everyone who drive in the city would stop. When they drive, and they will stop when the people want to go to cross. I think this is very good. In China, few Chinese people will do that. That's impressive for me. And also, the infrastructure of Russia city is indeed old, but it is meticulously maintained. And even in a very old hotel, the rooms are still very clean and tidy. And also, all Russian cities have several high-end theaters and higher quality museums. And the income of Russia is not high, but they still enjoy vacation. Maybe they are not very rich, but they still want to vacation every year, right? In China, no. In most of Chinese, they earn money. They like to earn money. No vacation. We call it 5+2 and plus 24. You know what I mean? 5+2 plus 24. Five working days and 2 days for weekend, and 24 every hours for work, for earn money. But Russian people, they enjoy vacations and enjoy a spiritual enjoyment, such as theater, museums. I think that the museums are very, very good. The locals, even the local city museum, each city museum are very good, much better than in China. And also there are more and better universities of performance, art, and painting in Russia than in China. And there are many painters and galleries all over the country. And the artist atmosphere is very rich. And this is much better than the Chinese, who still prefer to pursue material things, earning money. And also I think the high quality life of Russia supports Russia's self-confidence, even conscience and arrogant sometimes. But I must to say that Russia's attitude towards foreigners always seem to be on a high level of vigilance, honestly. In the eyes of Russian local governance, security seems to be more important than development. They focus on security more than development. And also the economic openness of Russian cities is very limited, to my honesty. There is a very little foreign investment. There are quite a few complaints from foreign investors about business environment in Russia. To my honesty, all the Chinese people, business people, they complain for the long-term business visas for foreigners in Russia. They are still, because the long-term business visas are still very, very difficult. So I just released the foreign investment. So I think I really suggest a lack of sufficient foreign investment will present a huge obstacle to growth of a de-westernized Russian economy. That's my real suggestion. But of course, the journey of rediscovery Russia is still going on, and I have to spend a long time to accumulate, think, and to dig more materials. I'm not a Russia study. I'm just to learn. My major is microeconomy and global governance. For Russia study, it's my surprise. So I just share with you my honestly surprise to you. And that's a first point I want to report. Second point I want to report to you is the current situation and the potential of China-Russia economic cooperation. Because most of people believe that the Russia-Ukraine conflict will accelerate the decoupling of Russia from the West, and that so-called looking east policy will accelerate its transformation into action. So President Putin talking about the looking east policy, at least for 10 years. But I think talk a lot, but action compared to talk, I mean action is very few. So I think that there will more and more actions of looking east. And then I think China is the most worthy global partner for Russian economy. So against the backdrop of the United States continuing policy of containing China, the strengthening of economic cooperation between China and Russia and other non-Western countries is also an inevitable trend. So I think we are very lucky to see that in recent years, China-Russia cooperation has made great progress. For example, last year, the China-Russia bilateral trade reached more than $140 billion last year, the highest level. And also, I think this has a lot to do with continuing promotion by the two governments, especially in the strategic interactions established by the profound friendship between President Xi and President Putin. Because both of the presidents, they meet average 5 times. You can imagine which friends or which colleagues, I mean, except classmates, you met just to talk each other for 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 times every year. But President Xi and President Putin, they met average 5 times every year. But the problem is that I found that on the whole, the total amount of China-Russia economic cooperation is still limited, and the huge potential remain untapped. For example, the U.S., the China-Russia, as I said right now, bilateral trade last year is the highest level, $140 billion, right? But I think it's still far from matching the level of China-Russia strategic and mutual trust. Why? Because you compare to the China-US relationship. Now China-US relationship are tense, but trade value, the bilateral trade value between China and US last year reached the 750 billion US dollars, more than 5 times the total trade value between China and Russia, right? This is my I listed the number, the fingers. I don't want to explain it. And China import nearly China imports every year nearly $3 trillion of goods from the world. But how much from the Russia? Only about 2% of the goods are imported from the Russia. And the import trade structure are very, very simple, right? Most concentrated in the bulk commodity. I just list these. And most of them are oil, natural gas, right? And also the financial relationship between China and Russia lag far behind the political economic relations. The amount of the mutual investment between our two countries is very, very small. How small? Look at this. China's average annual non-financial direct investment in Russia does not exceed $1 billion, which is less than 1% of China's foreign investment. China foreign investment in 2020 exceeded $150 billion, surpassing the United States to become the #1 in the world, the largest foreign investor since two years ago. This listed China's foreign investment data. But how about Russia's direct investment in China? It's only more than $10 million, less than 0.1% of foreign investment in China. The support, why? Too less, too small, right? And the supporting mechanism for financial cooperation between China and Russia is not yet perfect. And two countries lack market risk evaluation tools and sufficient information exchange and supervision mechanisms. And I just listed the fingers. And also, I think under sections of Europe and the United States, China and Russia still lack efficient payment and settlement channels. As a result, the total amount of cross-border receipts and payment between the two countries are not high. And the rules of local currency settlement is very difficult. And the private and the state-owned enterprises in China and Russia have not adopted active policy and stimulus measures to promote their national currency. And I think another thing we have to say, very important, because there are about 30,000 young Chinese students studying in Russia every year. But I asked them, some of them, most of them want to return to China after graduation. In the past 30 years, an average of 300,000 Chinese students study in the United States. And according to the database, about 12% to 45% of them would stay in the United States and to work and become a new force to help build the country, to make America great again. To help America great again from Chinese students. Most of the distinguished Chinese students even from Tsinghua University, Peking University, even our Lemmy University, they go to the United States. I criticize it very much. And help the United States. And there's a number of the students. And of course, I admit the number of Russian students enrolled in Chinese school is not very high. As a result, the people of the two countries have a weak foundation for understanding each other's economic environment and social culture. I think this is the problem. So why we have the so good strategic and political relations and mutual trust in the strategy and the politics, but our social level, our young generation level, I think is not match enough to the good strategic relationship between our two countries. In China, it is almost impossible to see the modern Russian films, music, novels, and art. If you ask Chinese people, what's a Russian song? Maybe they will ask, oh, maybe Katyusha, Moscow Night. It's 15 years ago, 16 years ago in Soviet Union period. But modern Russian songs, films, no. Similarly, in Russia, in addition to Chinese teaching, Chinese films, Chinese music, Chinese novel, and Chinese art are still hard to find. So therefore, I think there is in the past pandemic era, we need to, for Chinese people, we need to rediscover Russia, and also for Russians need to rediscover China. So that's what I want to report to you. The third point. So what can you rediscover China? So I have 3 recommendations for you. First, China's economic policy capability. Because over the past 30 years, China has maintained an average annual economic growth rate of 9%. So at least the figures in 2020, that's because of pandemic, we have 2.3%, and last year we have 8%. But this year we are very hard because of pandemic. In China, we still very strict anti-pandemic policies. Every people say wear masks in the street. So I feel very shocked. Still very shocked in Russia. Maybe most of all people, forgot the coffee. Even in the plane, in the plane when I fly to the other city, only me and my student, my assistant, only 2 of us wear masks. They feel very strange for me. And also, I have to say with you that in 1991, the economic aggregates of China and Russia were similar. But in 2021, China's economic aggregate was 12 times of that of Russia. In 1991, the per capita income of the Chinese was about 1/6 of that of Russia. And in last year, the per capita income of China was 1.2 times of that of Russia. And this is figures. And also, I think China's resource endowment is only about 1/3 of that of Russia. But China's policy ability to release market vitality internally and allocate global resources externally and promote long-term economic growth of its own is worthy of recovered by Russia. I think this month is very, very important because this month in 6th, the 20th National Congress of CPC will be held, and I think I strongly recommend you to pay attention to the CPC National Congress, because there will be a lot of new strategy will be released. The second point I want to share with you is that the China's industrial manufacturing capacity, especially infrastructure construction capacity, because China is a country with the most complete industrial category in the world, and half of the industrial products ranks first in the world. And China has been the world's largest manufacturing country for 11 consecutive years. And the total industrial output value last year exceeded the sum of the manufacturing output value of the G7. The G7 countries' total the manufacturing output is less than China. So this is my listing the number. And China has been the world's largest automobile producer for 7 consecutive years. And its population value last year was nearly 3 times of that of the United States. And among them, the production and sales of new energy car accounted for more than half of the world's total. And also the hydropower, wind power, biomass power generation, and the scale of the nuclear power under construction all ranked first in the world. So these are fingers, and also the 5G terminal connections has exceeded 200 million, so ranked first in the world. So I think I want to share with you about this first point. Also the high-speed rail construction. 70% of the global high-speed rail construction is in China, and the mileage of the highway in China has exceeded 160,000 kilometers, nearly twice that of the United States. And also the company, this year, the top 500 company in terms of the future global, we succeed exactly United States for 3 consecutive years, ranked number 1. And also the world's top 20 largest port, 16 are in China. And of the 10 cities in the world with more than 100 skyscrapers, 6 are in China. They are all numbers I want to repeat. Why I talk about this? It's not arrogant. It's not ostentation. Why I want to list some basic. I just want to list some basic fact. Why? Because I'm worried about that some Russians have not seen the huge changes in China and are still looking at China with same old views. Why? Because a very interesting story. When I was in Rostov-on-Don 3 weeks ago. In Rostov-on-Don, I bought an ice cream, which is very delicious, very delicious, with my assistant, Xingyi, and with my local friends. And Russian friends approached me and said to me, "You can find it in China, right? So delicious." Of course, China have ice cream, but the ice cream in Russia is very delicious. We want to import more from Russia. But that time I smiled at him, and I knew that he had no bad faith towards me. What I'm thinking that time is that how to invite him to visit China in person, just to have a look. So I think rediscovering Russia is very important for Chinese, and rediscovering China is also important for Russia. And the third point I want to share with you is China high-tech growth capacity. Because in the past many years, China has always existed the fear of falling behind in the technological revolution. That's innate. We fear. That's why we invest the high tech. Every year, 20% increasing. This is the least for you. And because I have to say with you is that in the first industrial revolution in the 18th century and the second industrial revolution in the 19th century, China was absent. And because our absence, we were beaten by the West. And now, so that's why we invest high tech. Mr. Deng Xiaoping told us, technology is a progress. And in the third industrial revolution, since the end of the last century, the information revolution, so Chinese were desperately catching up, and the large companies such as Huawei, Alibaba, Tencent were born. And now we are in the fourth industrial revolution, intelligence revolution. So China is facing chip suppression. from the United States. We feel very angry because the United States, kidnap our Meng Wanzhou, right? We feel very angry. And so we have to solve a large number of technological suck-neck problems. And last year, China's R&D investment and the number of the IP applications was basically the same as those of the United States. So that's why we formulated a national science and a technological development strategy. And China must maintain the trend of the catching up in the high-tech field. That's true. Because of the economic slowdown in China, we cut a lot of budget, even the university budget last year. We cut a lot because of pandemic, because of slowdown economic growth. We cut a lot the government budget. But in China, we still increasing the investment of the high-tech very quickly. We just want to solve as I said, the stuck neck problem. And China-Russia high-tech cooperation is imperative on the basis of compliance with international rules, equality, mutual benefit, and win-win results. And BRICS countries, including China, India, Brazil, and South Africa, should be willing to contribute to Russia's technology import institutions. So that's what I want to share with you. Rediscover China. Finally, I want to share with you that the suggestion to on China-Russia economic cooperation in the future. Because I think as a Chinese think tank scholar, we must put forward some well-intentioned suggestions for the development of Russia and the China-Russia relations. Although I know there are so many excellent scholars like Timothy, you are all set excellent, you are making a suggestion to your government, but I want to contribute some. First, I think it is recommended that Russia should develop the local economy, stimulate the market forces, and improve infrastructure. Because Chinese people usually say, if you want to get rich, build a road first, which means that by improving infrastructure, enhancing the efficiency of logistics, people and information flow, and saving transaction costs, and then turning resource advantage into economic growth. I visited Crimea, Vladivostok, Kamchatka, all very, very beautiful. I think much beautiful views than Chinese those journey cities. But the problem is that the road is very narrow, the network is very slow, and the whole hotel is old, and the restaurant is insufficient, to my honesty. If all of them can be improved, the tourism revenues will increase significantly. And in this regard, local governments should give full support to the development of market economy and stimulate the vitality of market player. But the problem, as I said, I touched and spoke, I meet many local city officials. But the problem is that they seem to place more emphasis on federal budget transfers. And in fact, as long as more infrastructure is improved, more investment can be attracted. And then there will be huge economic growth. We call it infrastructure economics. So this is a Chinese economic development experience I want to share with you. That's first point suggestion. Second is that it is suggested that Russia should improve its business environment, opening up the Far East market and introduce Asian capital. Why I say that? Because Asian is, as we all know, Asia is the most important region for outbound investment in the third decade of the 21st century, especially for Chinese capital. So it is suggested that Russia should make huge reform in labor visa, project promotion, tax policy, and labor environment, etc. Because why I say that? Because I feel, to my honest, it's very straight for me. Because every time I go to a Russian local city and check in the local hotels, I'm asked for visa on arrival. It's very strange regulation for me, to my honest. But I also very thank to Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Russia WE&IA Club and Russia Embassy in China, because they helped me to give me a visa to travel to and from Russia several times a year, multi trip a year. This is very lucky for me. You know, originally I want to bring 3 colleagues with me, but 3 of them just only got the 15 days visa, and they finally canceled because the flight airline canceled. They have to cancel the trip. Only let me alone to come here. But so I very appreciated the visa, multi-year visa for the foreign affairs. Just because the WE&IA Club, because of Timothy. And also, I have suggested to several Russian foreign ministry officials that, you know, even with the tension between China and the US, the US government every year still grants 2 million ordinary Chinese people visas with multi-entry for 10 years. 10 years multi-interest. United States government give Chinese ordinary people. I think this. I ask the question, why? Why our 2 countries have so good relations, but the visa still too difficult? A Russian Chinese business friendly person explained to me that this is a security issue. So I'm very curious. So don't the confident Russians in the 21st century believe that the Chinese who come to Russia are helping Russia develop? I think this is true, because I want to share a very tough story to you in Kamchatka. Because in the Kamchatka dragging project undertaken by a Chinese company, I was moved to tears. That's true, because in the land with unfavorable national conditions, a group of young Chinese people from a Chinese company, they complete nearly the 7 kilometers length and a deepening of the minus 30 meters and 200 meters a wide sea channel dredging projects. You know, these very difficult to do, very difficult projects, but those young Chinese people, they do it. And very cold weather, only use one year to contribute to the Arctic airline. And also in the past 30 years, what the China company and people brought to Russia, I think it's a cooperation, it's training, it's construction, it's friendship. But I really find that a few, not many, a few Russian media and scholars are completely unreasonable, I think, to suspect or grounded against China. I think this is unfair. Finally, third point I want to share with you is that strengthen people and the cultural exchanges between China and Russia, so that the next generation will truly be familiar with each other. That's very important suggestion. Because at present, about 100,000 Chinese are engaged in business, infrastructure, and agriculture in Russia, and making great contributions to China-Russia cooperation. And there are less than 10,000 Russians in China, mainly engaged in commercial work. But the problem is that our cooperation also needs more energy, engineers, scientists, psychologists, scholars, artists, writers, and so on. In the recent years, China-Russia strategic cooperation and political trust have continued to deepen. But cooperation at economic and social levels must continue to be followed up. Societies of the two countries need to know more about each other's views, novels, plans, architectures, science and technology, academic ideas, and so on. This is true, right? And also the young people from China and Russia will deepen our understanding of each other, develop a sense of the intimacy, and learn more about each other's financial system and economic development, which will help to enhance the financial cooperation and currency use between our two countries. Because nowadays, the most urgent need to improve China-Russia financial and economic cooperation is what? Is to further use local currency in bilateral trade. Because in the past, most of the currency in our bilateral trade depend on dollars. But now, we have to get rid of the extensive dependence on the US dollars in the settlement and in the payment system. Because with the promotion of the two governments, the proportion of the China-Russia trade settlement in local currency may reach the 45%, or maybe even the 60% this year. I think this is very, very fortunate. And these are the figures I want to share with you. And also, I think the relationship between China and Russia cannot follow the old path of the great power struggle in Western international relations theory, right? And China and Russia need permanent peace and mutual trust, and move towards to a new era of the civilization features human cooperation, mutual trust and respect. I think this requires the high-level experts to build. We, as think tank scholars, are also a duty bound. And finally, final points, the fourth point. It is suggested that Russia should strengthen the awareness of looking east and turn it into an action to integrate into Euro-Asian integration. Putin's looking east policy is absolutely correct. But however, the sense of urgency raised by the top decision makers to looking east does not seem to be translated into going east actions that are fast or efficient enough. I wrote a long paper for the conference EF. The name is the 21st century is the century of the Far East. I think that so-called the rise of Far East is not only the rise of China, but also the rise of the Southeast Asia, ASEAN, and South Asia. And because the Far East, the big Far East, contributes more than 50% of the global economic growth. And also the Far East is forming the world's largest industrial manufacturing belt and an international pattern of cross-border labor division is formed between China, Japan, South Korea, and ASEAN. And also the total export value has exceeded that of the EU and North American combined, and the largest wealth transfer in the history of the world is being transferred to the Far East. So I think the Far East is becoming the innovation highland of the intelligence revolution. So-called more and more talents are attracted by the Far East. So final point I want to share with you is that my conclusion is that in the 17th century, the Peter the Greater went to Europe to learn technology. At that time, Europe was just rising. And the modesty and the diligence of the Russians at that time finally created the rise of the modern Russia, right? 200 years ago, 300 years ago, Russia began to rise. And now, in the 21st century, I think Asia is on the rise. So calling for new Peter the Great style Russia scholars and Russia Britishers to come to Asia to investigate, rediscover Asia and rediscover China. I think this will be promote the new conditions between China and Russia. So I want to share with you is that this trip I come to Russia for 1 month, and also for 2 months, travel so many cities, maybe more than 20 cities. One purpose, the unique purpose is that just to represent, a phenomenon that is a scholar who in the past, I focus on the American, focus on the global governance, but now I want to focus on the Russia. I just want to rediscover Russia, the advantage we want to learn. I share you, we want to learn Russia's social stability, we want to learn Russia high quality character of Russia, ordinary people, and also the Russia local those culture development. We can learn a lot from Russia. And also, but problem is that Russia still also can learn a lot from Asia, from China. So this is what I want to share. Is that my title said the rediscover Russia and rediscover China. So thank you again for HSE's invitation. This for me is a great honor for me to share here. So I'm a friend of Russia.